I'm looking at what appears to be a Nazgul. You know, the Witch King of Angmar from Lord of the Rings. Except this isn't Middle Earth. This is a bleak, rainy street in Birmingham, in the UK. And that figure, in the full niqab, is a Conservative Party candidate running for local council. I'm not kidding. You watch her campaign video and she can barely string a sentence of English together. Just long, awkward pauses as she asks brothers and sisters for their vote. What on earth is happening to the British political system? Now, you might think she's a weird one-off, but what I found is that she isn't an exception. She's the beginning of a pattern. A pattern. Yeah, I know, it's a big claim to make, but honestly, you just can't make this stuff up. It's like they're not even trying to hide it. Forget the Witch King for a second. Let's meet the next contestant in this political circus. This is Jahangir Malik. He's out on the campaign trail doing a bit of a meet and greet, a classic photo op. And look who he's brought along for a ringing endorsement. This poor old bloke. Bless him, he looks like he's halfway to the afterlife. I mean, he's so switched on, he probably thinks it's 1962, and he's about to watch the footy. And there's Jahangir beaming, holding his hand up like he's just secured the vote of a key community elder. Yeah, nah. Mate, this isn't campaigning. This is parading around people who look like they can't give consent for a leaflet photo. It's just grim. And then there's this character, the Labour Party candidate, a bloke named Julian. And if he looks a bit familiar to you, yeah, that's because he's basically a real-life version of Big Smoke from Grand Theft Auto. His English isn't exactly Shakespeare, but he's got one big, clear promise for the voters. He's going to clean up the rats. Now look, every area's got a few rodents. I get it. But the way he says it, you get the feeling he might not be talking about the four-legged kind. It's that classic wink-wink, nudge-nudge politics, isn't it? Vote for me, I'll get rid of them. Rats. Huck. Alright, so let's just step back. First we have the Witch King of Angmar. Then we have a bloke using what looks like his granddad as a prop. And now we have Big Smoke, promising a vague pest control service. Am I the only one seeing a pattern here, or are these just a few harmless oddballs? Let me know what you think is really going on in the comments. Because from where I'm sitting, this is starting to look less like a democratic election and more like an organised takeover. So, an organised takeover. I ended the last part on that, and I know it sounds a bit dramatic, a bit over the top. You might be sitting there thinking, come on Sarah, a few oddballs with terrible English, a bloke using his granddad as a prop. That's a takeover? And you know what? It's a fair question. It feels like you're trying to connect dots that aren't even on the same page. But what if the strategy isn't about grand speeches or winning debates? What if the playbook is much, much quieter? What if the first move in a cultural chess game looks a lot like a complaint about something you'd step in on your way to the park? Let me introduce you to this bloke, a Green Party candidate, of all things, in Bradford. He's not talking about saving the whales or recycling. He's talking about dog poo. Have a listen to this. Pause. He says, and I'm quoting directly, the DOP is not welcomed by many of Bradford residents. Yeah, DOP. He means dog. Now, on the surface, this is just a local busybody having a whinge. But think bigger. Think strategically. This isn't about hygiene. This is a calculated probe. It's the first quiet move to make a public space hostile to the people who've always used it. Traditional British families, the ones who walk their dogs in the park. You make the park unwelcoming for the dog, you eventually make it unwelcoming for the owner. You slowly, quietly push them out. It's a land grab, one park bench at a time. Now look, I can feel you rolling your eyes. Sarah, you're reaching. You're connecting dog poo to a cultural takeover. That's insane. And normally, I'd agree with you. Yeah. Nah, it sounds crazy. Except this exact playbook has already been run. It was so blatant, so corrupt, that it was thrown out by a High Court judge. To understand what's really happening in Bradford, we need to go to Tower Hamlets in London. Back in 2015, the mayor there, a bloke named Lutfur Rahman, was booted from office. And the High Court judgment that did it, mate, it lays out the whole strategy. The judge found him guilty of corrupt and illegal practices. Want that in plain English? A judge confirmed they used religion, what the court called undue spiritual influence, to bully people into voting for them. And they used your taxpayer money to pay off their mates and allied groups to lock in those votes. Sound familiar? This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a court document. Case number 2015 WHC 1215 QB. You can look it up yourself. It is stone-cold proof that the Takeover playbook is real. It's documented, and it's been successfully run before. So when you see a candidate in Bradford suddenly obsessed with dops in the park, you're not seeing a lone weirdo. You're seeing page 1 of a script that's already been written, and that's the real kicker. This playbook, it's effective. It works. But a good strategy is only as good as the strategist running it. These candidates we've seen, the Witch King, Big Smoke, they don't exactly scream mastermind, do they? No, this isn't being run by amateurs. There's a single calculating figure pulling the strings behind this whole coordinated effort, and you are not going to believe who it is. His name is Ahmed Yakub. He's the leader, the public face, the chief organizer of this whole movement of independent candidates. Now just think back for a second. Picture the faces we've seen. Fazila Patel struggling to get her words out. Jahangir Malik, the Witch King of Angmar. And of course, Julian. Big Smoke. Odd, right? Seemingly random. But if you look at the footage at the campaign events, who's that figure standing just behind them? Who's the one stepping up to the microphone to speak to the press on their behalf? It's him. Ahmed Yakub. Every single time. See, this wasn't just a circus of random, incompetent individuals stumbling into local politics. It was a circus with a ringmaster. And when you realize that suddenly it's not so funny anymore, is it? This is a coordinated campaign. And it has a leader. And now we have his name. So, what does the ringmaster look like when he's not pulling the strings from the shadows? Well, he looks professional. Plausible. Ahmed Yakub, out on the campaign trail, sounds like any other local poly. He's talking about the cost of living. He's talking about fixing the roads, collecting the bins on time, the stuff that families actually worry about. He's dressed in a smart suit. He's got a professional team. He's shaking hands, kissing babies. He's playing the game. He says all the right things to get the votes of ordinary, decent people. And for a moment, you might even think, okay, maybe this is just politics. But then you get a moment like this. This is from Sky News. The official interview is over. The reporter is wrapping up. The camera starts to pull away. And Yaqub, thinking he's off air, leans into a voter, to one of his own supporters, to tell them what he really thinks. He thinks the microphone is off. It wasn't. The thing is that the Zionists control everything, and that's what happened to try to silence us. Let that sink in for a second. The Zionists control everything. This isn't about bins, it's not about the cost of living. This is the oldest, ugliest conspiracy theory in the book, whispered into a supporter's ear when he thought no one else was listening. This is the mask slipping. This is what's underneath all the talk about a fair go for the local community. This is the real agenda. And before the army of apologists and gaslighters rushes in to tell you it was just a slip of the tongue, that it was a one-off gaffe, you need to see the numbers, because this wasn't a mistake. It's a feature, not a bug. A major report from the Henry Jackson Society, a respected British think tank, looked at this exact issue. What they found is chilling. They found that support for these kinds of vile anti-Semitic ideas is statistically 2 to 4 times higher among British Muslims compared to the general population. 2 to 4 times higher. It's not an opinion, it's a data point. So when Ahmed Yakub says this, he's not making a gaffe. He's speaking directly to a known, statistically significant sentiment within his core voter base. He knew exactly what he was saying, and he knew his audience would get it. So now we know. The mask is off. We've seen the face underneath. The real question, the one that should actually worry you, is no longer what they believe. We know that now. The question is, how? How is this even possible? how does a movement hiding an ideology this extreme actually gain this much political ground in a modern Western country? So the question left hanging was, how? How is this politically possible? The answer has nothing to do with political genius or some hidden strategy. It's simpler. It's maths. Cold, hard, demographic maths. And this isn't my interpretation. This comes directly from the UK's own Office for National Statistics, the ONS. We're going to look at their official census data. Let's start with Britain's second biggest city, Birmingham. Look at the chart. In 2011, the census showed Birmingham's Muslim population was 21.8%. Now watch this number. 10 years later, the 2021 census. The figure jumps to 29.9%. That is an 8.1 percentage point increase in a single decade. We're talking about a shift that took the Muslim population to nearly 1 in every 3 people. That isn't a gentle drift. It is a demographic shockwave. But citywide numbers can be misleading. The real political game is won and lost on the ground, ward by ward. So let's zoom in on one of Birmingham's council wards, a place called Small Heath. According to that same official 2021 census, the population identifying as Muslim there is 85.9%. Let that number land for a moment, 86%. In a democracy, when one group reaches that level of concentration, their specific cultural and religious identity stops being just a factor in an election. It becomes the only factor that matters. But even that incredible number doesn't show you the real engine driving this. The true momentum is locked in one final, devastating statistic: the median age. The ONS data reveals the median age of the Muslim population in Birmingham is just 27. The median age for the UK as a whole is 40. A median age of 27 means this is a population group just entering its peak years of family formation and growth. This isn't a prediction. It is a mathematical certainty. It's a demographic conveyor belt ensuring that this voter base won't just continue to grow. It will compound year after year. So, when you ask, how is this even possible? This is how. It's not a mystery. It is the simple, brutal, undeniable power of demographic mathematics. This is the engine room creating the political reality, and the official data shows it's just warming up. That engine, it's just warming up. And don't you dare think for a second this is just some weird story from Birmingham. The same machine, the exact same instruction manual, is designed to work anywhere, including here, in your suburb. So how does it work? How do you systematically erase a community? Academics have literally mapped this out. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a social science model. A playbook. Here's how they do it. First, you need critical mass, a high concentration of one single demographic group moving into a specific area, not spread out across a city, concentrated. This creates a beachhead. Second, and this is the crucial part, that group organizes and votes as a single discipline block. A Princeton University study on this exact topic found that organized Muslim voting blocks can boost their preferred candidates' election probability by 10 to 26 percentage points. In a tight local council election, that isn't just a nudge. That is a guaranteed win. It's how a minority can achieve total political dominance. Alright, stop. I need you to listen very carefully, because what I just described, that block vote, that's the trigger, but it's not the weapon. The real weapon is what they do. After they win, and it is aimed squarely at your mortgage and your family's future. If you miss this next 90 seconds, you will never understand how they systematically price you and your kids out of your own neighborhood. Here's the weapon. Once they control the council, the priorities shift. The area becomes culturally and economically hostile to the original population. Suddenly, your rates are being spent on projects and symbols that have nothing to do with you or your community's heritage. The council cares more about a foreign conflict thousands of miles away than they do about your bin collection. This isn't a guess, it's a documented process. Data from UK towns like Bradford and Burnley, published by Radical Statistics, confirms the mechanism. As the South Asian Muslim population grows through immigration, the white British population shrinks through outmigration. It's called white flight, and it's a measurable process of displacement. And this is the cycle that makes you feel like you can't afford to live here anymore. A report from the Resolution Foundation found that certain ethnic minority households in the UK spend over double the proportion of their income on housing, between 23 and 26%, compared to the white British average of just 11%. That isn't just a statistic. That intense financial pressure is the reason your kids can never afford a home in the suburb you worked your guts out to build. It's the economic engine of displacement. But being priced out, that's just the beginning. That's the cleanup crew. The real prize for winning a local council isn't about rates or roads or bins. That's small thinking. The real endgame is about gaining the power to rewrite the rules of society for the next generation. And they start in the one place you trust the most, your children's school. So let's talk about that school. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine your daughter's school, the one you pay your mortgage for, the one you drive her to every morning. Now imagine being told she has to wait for the boys to finish eating before she's allowed in the canteen. Not in some faraway country you see on the news. In Birmingham, a taxpayer-funded school in the middle of England. This isn't a hypothetical. This is exactly what happened at the Al-Hijra school. In a Muslim-majority area, the school leadership decided that strict gender segregation was the new rule. Boys and girls couldn't mix. Period. This went all the way to a UK Court of Appeal in 2017, which, you'll be shocked to hear, ruled that it was unlawful sex discrimination. A win for common sense, right? Yeah. Nah. Here's the kicker. The local power dynamics were so entrenched, the local council so captured, that they just ignored the court. An Ofsted report confirmed the practice was still going on 2 years later, into 2019. The highest courts in the land were powerless because the facts on the ground, the numbers in that suburb, had already changed the game. The rules of the community had become more powerful than the laws of the country. And if you think that's an isolated case, think again. In the 2024 local elections, independent candidates in places like Burnley were winning seats by explicitly campaigning on platforms of preventing free mixing in the community. It's not a bug. It's the feature. It's the entire point. This is the endgame. This is what happens after the political power is won. It's not loud. It's quiet. It's the slow, methodical erosion of the shared values you thought were guaranteed. It's the creation of a parallel society with parallel rules starting in the classroom. Winning a council seat isn't about bins and rates. It's about gaining the authority to decide if your daughter eats with her classmates or has to wait her turn. That's the future you're actually voting for. So, let's just take a breath and connect the dots on how we got here. It all started with a few candidates who looked like a joke, didn't it? The ones with the bizarre flyers, the ones who could barely speak the language of the country they wanted to help govern. It was easy to write them off as just odd. But we pulled the thread, and we found it wasn't a joke. It was a playbook. We uncovered the demographic engine driving the whole thing, the cold, hard numbers that don't lie. We saw the universal mechanism of displacement, the quiet, systematic hollowing out of communities that can be deployed anywhere, from a street in Bradford to a suburb in Sydney. And if you've been watching this, feeling that knot in your stomach, that sense that your community is being changed against your will, while politicians and the media tell you you're imagining it, let me be crystal clear. That feeling is not paranoia. It's pattern recognition. What you are sensing is a data-proven, observable reality. You are not crazy for noticing. You are not a bad person for questioning. Now you have the data. Share this with someone who needs to see it. Make sure they can't say they weren't warned.